Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sarita Jackson with the Global Research Institute of International Trade. This video that's appearing on GRIIT's YouTube channel is based on the 12th episode of GRIIT Group Live. And I hope you're watching, that you're safe and doing very well. And speaking of being very safe, especially in these trying times, one of the things or the conversations that I've had recently has pertained to the role of businesses or how businesses, especially small businesses such as GRIIT, are doing over these last few months or several months during a very, very challenging year. And so when I have meetings with colleagues of mine, our question is, okay, what is it that you're doing and what are some of the strategies that you are using in order to stay afloat and continue to provide a service for your clients? And as I was thinking about that question, and a question that often comes up, especially from those who know that I'm in the area of international trade and advising businesses on importing from or exporting to an overseas market, is, well, what is going on in the area of international trade? And two specific questions that I thought about that came up were pertaining to the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, when someone had asked me about agriculture and what are the provisions, what does it mean for the agricultural sector? And then when I thought about the previous GRIIT Group Live, where I talked about many of the import and export restrictions put in place by countries from all around the world, from different countries, and what that means for consumers in those markets, especially those countries that depend heavily on food imports, and the exporters to that market, I began to realize, wait a minute, there are some things that have been taking place in 2020 that have not received a lot of attention. The first thing being other trade agreements that have provisions that took effect this year pertaining to the agricultural sector. With the USMCA, again, when it comes to agriculture, not much, just it only increases access for certain products such as dairy, poultry, from the United States to Canada. But the agreement, many of the changes, the modernization of the agreement is in other areas, not so heavily focused on agriculture. Then when we look at the imports and the export restrictions that I talked about in one of the GRIIT Group Live sessions, I realized that with the provisions that took effect this year, that it actually opens up the market into other countries for U.S. agricultural producers. So that's the focus for this particular video appearing on the YouTube channel, and that was the focus of GRIIT Group Live, to discuss those opportunities that are available to agricultural exporters, food manufacturers, and looking at some of the other markets that have opened up. So the first market is the Dominican Republic. Now I'm finishing up a project over the next couple of months focused on the Dominican Republic. That comes under an agreement known as the Dominican Republic Central American Free Trade Agreement, or DR Capta. And what that is, that's an agreement that was signed by all parties by 2004, your Central American countries as well as the Dominican Republic. And when I say Central American countries, let me be specific. That is Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. Those are the Central American countries that signed this agreement. Then you have the Dominican Republic. So under DR Capta, the provisions that I'm focusing on today really are those pertaining to the agricultural sector and agricultural trade between the United States and the Dominican Republic only, not the other Central American countries. And there are provisions that took place or took effect this year that basically open up 90% of the Dominican agricultural market to U.S. exporters this year. And then in 5 years, then the tariffs, when I say open up the market, meaning reducing or eliminating tariffs, actually eliminating tariffs. They had been reduced over a certain number of years depending on the product, but eventually eliminating tariffs, and then 5 years on all of the agricultural products that are under that DR Capta, particularly with regard to the Dominican Republic, will be eliminated. So that is a market to consider. Now, there are challenges with that, more so for the Dominican producers, especially of your basic products, let's say when it comes to beef, poultry, some of the more sensitive products for the country, where the question becomes, how will they actually be able to compete with this increased influx of products from the United States into their market? So will they be able to compete domestically, or have they actually used this transition period to add value so that they can export to the U.S. market and actually benefit from this trade agreement? So that's some of the challenges. Also, with the current pandemic that has affected countries all around the world, even your local producers in the Dominican Republic, according to a recent report published by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that some of your local producers that had a market within the tourism sector have lost that market. But nevertheless, U.S. exports have remained steady. So those are the things to consider. But the basic point is that under the DR Capta, particularly the component for the U.S. Dominican trade, that opens up a market between the United States and the Dominican Republic. The other agreement worth considering that actually opens up another market is the agreement signed between the United States and Japan. Last year, if you follow my social media, you'll probably see where I talked about the time during the summer where I was able to participate in a roundtable discussion with officials that had visited from Washington, D.C., about the role of small businesses, what are our concerns or those of our clients or our colleagues, things that we have observed as small business owners ourselves of the impact of these trade deals. And one of the trade deals that we discussed was the U.S.-Japan Free Trade Agreement. Well, that agreement was signed last year and took effect this year. And a major component, or one of the major components of the U.S.-Japan Free Trade Deal, is in the area of agriculture. So there are different products or commodities where there is increased preferential access. And what that means, it varies. It's very important to look at the specific commodity, but where the tariffs have been reduced on certain products, where they're immediately eliminated, or there are quotas. And so I won't go through all of that here. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me at grit@grit.org if you're interested in a list of those particular products, or if you're an agricultural producer or in the food space and you want to know what the provisions are when it comes to preferential access to the Japanese market for your particular product, your particular, as we call it in the technical speak, tariff line, then feel free to reach out, grit@grit.org, so that you can get that information. And if you're interested, I can also publish it in my monthly newsletter that goes out every month. It's a free newsletter, so I can also publish that list if I see that there is interest in that. So wrapping all of this up and taking the information, just adding to some of the questions that I've received and things that I've talked about in previous sessions through the GRIIT Group Live, is that there are two markets to look at where provisions took effect this year, and that's the Dominican Republic and Japan. Now the next steps when it comes to now looking at, here are two other markets, are threefold. One is to do your research. So that's where GRIIT can come in and help with that particular research on what the agreements mean for your particular product, your particular agricultural product. To do that research, what is happening in the market, especially with many of the changes that have taken place this year, some insight into what we can expect between now and possibly in 2021. So that's some of the things to look at doing the research. Then developing a strategy. Now that strategy should not be a generic strategy or a cookie cutter approach, but basically one that is based on that research, and have a strategy that is aligned with your company's resources and capabilities, as well as the needs, the demands, and other things that are going on within that particular market, so that you can export, but not just export, but to export competitively and compete in that particular market. And then lastly, the implementation side. And that's where a lot of times we work with our trusted advisors, or what we call our boots on the ground, who can actually help with the implementation, provide additional insight that gets beyond the trends and the numbers and the statistics that we take and put into a story that makes sense for you, where they can actually take all of that, take the strategy, and actually bring it to fruition. So those are the things that we want to focus on here. And so just lastly, bring your questions. Yeah, bring your questions. If you have any questions pertaining to the DR Capta, the US-Japan FTA, or any other questions pertaining to trade, feel free to reach out, grit@grit.org. I hope this information is helpful. If you like this information, please press like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share with other individuals that you think, your colleagues, that may be able to benefit from this information. So thank you so much for your time and your attention. Again, I am Dr. Sarita Jackson. I'm President and CEO of the Global Research Institute of International Trade. Have a great day. Bye-bye.